Hey, it's your band as a business. I'm Cornelis, and today I'm going to react to Music is Win's reaction to Kurt Cobain talking about music theory. Are you following me? It's a bit meta. Basically, Kurt Cobain is talking about the importance or not of knowing music theory to being a musician, and in Kurt Cobain's case specifically, to being a songwriter. Now, Music is Win, he named this video Kurt Cobain was wrong about music theory. I think he's somewhat joking. It's a bit of internet clickbait, but he does have an opinion, and I believe I fall somewhere in between Music is Win's opinion and Kurt Cobain's opinion. And I will give my perspective on the importance of music theory, how to use it, and the hidden third ingredient that I think a lot of musicians are forgetting about, and I'll talk about that in the course of this video. Anyway, let's start watching.
I'm not into musicianship at all. I don't have any respect for it. I just hate it. You know, to learn how to read music or to understand arpeggios and Dorian modes and all that stuff is just a waste of time. It just, you know, it gets in the way of originality.
Okay, I think he's trolling, right? I mean, this is the same guy who wore a dress to a benefit show. Yeah, Kurt Cobain knew basic theory. I mean, this is probably just him acting too cool for school. I'll be serious at the top here before I get a little silly. Kurt Cobain was a genius. And what he's saying is that he is a vessel. Music comes from the heart and the soul out through him, and you don't have to know any of its construction to create it. You just have to channel your inner creativity, and music theory gets in the way of that, according to him.
It gets in the...
Okay, I'm going to stop him right there. I don't quite think that's what Kurt is saying. Now, first of all, there's no right or wrong way to do music, okay? So do whatever you want. Now, some musicians are concert violin players, right? And they have to learn to sight read really well and play other people's music. Some violinists also compose their own music, but a lot of them don't. They I don't want to say just, because it sounds denigrating, but a lot of musicians out there, they play other people's music, and that's 100% valid way of being a musician. Other musicians make noise landscapes, as it were, and ambient music, and they don't pay any attention to that kind of stuff. Or there's musicians that make music on their DAWs, or there's jazz musicians that need to know some music theory, or a lot of them learn by ear. There's many ways to being a musician. Now, Kurt Cobain was primarily concerned with writing his own songs. That was his main reason for being a musician. He wanted to write songs and he wanted to perform them. He was not interested in being a jazz soloist, right? So that's his perspective. Now, Music is Win is saying that Kurt Cobain is maybe either trolling a bit of tongue-in-cheek, which, you know, he had a sense of humor like that, a bit of a dry sense of humor. But I don't think he's relying only on his raw passion. The key to Kurt Cobain, I believe, is that he would encounter people that are very good at knowing all the theory, but can't write songs. And this is the paradox that I've experienced, and I think many musicians, especially guitar players, experience, is where they meet people that are really good at theory but can't write good songs or can't even come up with a good riff. And so there's this paradox. Okay, if you know all the theory, why does your music suck? Sorry to say it, right? And I experienced this when I was first starting out. Oh, this is the right scale over this chord. And it's like, okay, why can't you write something that sounds cool, right? That's the paradox. And we're generalizing. There are people like Joe Satriani and Steve Vai that know all the theory, and they make great music, depending if you like that kind of music, or people that are classical composers or jazz players. But if Kurt Cobain wants to write punk songs, rock songs, I'm sure he met people, you know, especially he was at the tail end, well, he caused the end, as it were, of the hair metal days. So I'm sure he encountered lots of people that were really into hair metal and copying Eddie Van Halen and all that kind of stuff. And they made, in his opinion, bad music. So what's going on. Whereas the people that he liked to listen to, like Black Flag and stuff like that, they didn't know music theory. I don't know specifically about Black Flag, but he was listening to punk music, and they made music that he really liked. Now, but what set Kurt Cobain apart, and this is the key, right? If I had to give one tip, one magic tip that nobody's telling you about, that the experts won't tell you, it's this. Kurt Cobain, he sang along to his favorite music, and that's what he was doing since he was a kid. In his interviews, he talks about how much he loved the Beatles and ABBA and how he would sing along to them, and that's the key, because when you listen to his singing melodies, there's some John Lennon in there, and he was a big John Lennon fan, and that is the thing which Rick Beato says, that maybe Kurt Cobain didn't know the theory to describe it with words, but his ears knew the theory. And this is where I fall between these two sides, where, oh, you should learn lots of theory, and the other side is, which is, oh, it's all useless, it holds you back. The thing that ties it together is your ear training, your ability to hear music, and for you to play on your instrument what you can hear in your head. Now, you can use theory to do that, or you can just get really good at playing by ear, but that is the key that is binding these two worlds together, as it were. And then you can put yourself on the spectrum where you want to be, where it's only about ear training, playing by ear, or it's about having a knowledge of what is happening in terms of the theory. But you can't just say, oh, it's passion and he was a 1 in a million talent or whatever it is. He was working on his ear training for all those years since he was a kid, but we just then look at it as, oh, he was talented, or he was one of a kind. No, he put in the hours, but he didn't put in the hours in terms of learning the scales. He put in the hours of learning scales and intervals through his ear and what he was singing along to and what he was able to play on his instrument. Anyway, let's continue.
Originality.
Maybe you feel differently, but it's giving, I'm not like the other guys, baby, I'm different. I mean, these chords in Lithium are not in any key. That is in some weird E power chord major sound. I don't know. Kind of like a juicy bass line. But this note does not fit. In E major, it's a borrowed chord, a flat 6 major. So it's a really cool way to compose music using your ear, and that's what Kurt Cobain did. A combination of not knowing how to do things with just the raw passion and talent in Kurt Cobain are what yielded the results, not the fact that he didn't know music theory.
Okay, I'll stop him there, right. So when you learn theory, there's the danger that you construct limits in your mind as to what is right or wrong. And even people that are really into theory, they will say a theory is just a way of describing Western music, 12-tone system music, and you shouldn't let it limit you. And I agree with that, but then what happens is that a lot of musicians will then unconsciously be limited by these theory descriptions, by music theory, right? So this is what you always have to keep in mind when you. Okay, so you've learned how to find the chords in a major key. So you've learned all the chords in C major, right? And then you want to write a song, and then you think, okay, well then I can use these chords. Great. But realize that you can also use other chords. And so Musicismylife says, okay, there's a borrowed chord. Now, that is not because Kurt Cobain was talented and he was like, whoa. He obviously had soaked up music over the course of his life that used borrowed chords. For example, the Beatles, they're famous for using borrowed chords, and I'm sure he listened to tons of punk music, which is all based around power chords or fifths, right? And those are ambiguous chords because it's a root note and a fifth and then an octave sometimes. Now, again, a guy that's playing punk music doesn't need to know that it's a root and a fifth, and it doesn't have a minor or major third. They just play these bar chords, and that's what Kurt Cobain was doing, right? And then a lot of these songs, they don't have a clear key center, as it were, and then the singing can alternate between minor and major thirds, so it becomes confusing from a theory point of view. Now, it's not that Kurt Cobain had this inbuilt genius talent. Maybe he did have some inclination. This is a whole discussion about talent versus, work. If you're short, it's going to be difficult to become a basketball player. That's easy for everyone to see. But when it comes to music, do we have a musical inclination in our brain? Who knows? It's a difficult thing to say. But anyway, these borrowed chords, that's not because he's a genius. I mean, I think, to me, it was great. He was genius. But he trained his musical mind on that kind of music. So it's no wonder then he would write songs with borrowed chords and going all over the place, because that's what he put into his head over many years.
Things go in aligning with your heart and breaking new ground. Yeah, that's all what happened with Kurt Cobain. But let me tell you that not everyone's Kurt Cobain. Claiming music theory is useless is the same thing as claiming that expanding your vocabulary and using proper grammar will inhibit your ability to communicate. But here's something true. I've never met a musician who got worse after learning something. Maybe Kurt...
Okay, I'll stop him there. Yeah, this is I think the mistake that a lot of people that are really advocating for music theory make is this. They will say, okay, music theory is important. It explains how all these great musicians and songwriters made their music, and then in the next sentence they'll say, oh, but they were geniuses and they had natural talent. It's like this weird contradiction. But you need to connect those two worlds because, as I said, like Kurt Cobain was soaking up all this music into his mind. He was listening to punk music where they're playing power chords and they're going all over the place, no clear, not sticking to a certain key. But then he's also spent his entire childhood listening to the Beatles and ABBA, some of the catchiest music catchiest pop music that was ever made, and that's how we marry those two things. So don't say, oh well, he was a genius, I can't do that. No, you should think, okay, I should soak up lots of music into my head. I should listen to the music, like intently listen to the music that I want to be influenced by, and sing along to the melodies of the vocals, sing along to the bass line, sing along to the piano, and then recreate that on your instrument, piano or guitar. Sing along. Like, you should be able to sing solos of your favorite guitar players. And that's how, I'm not saying you're going to be a genius like Kurt Cobain, but it's gonna develop you as a musician. And I think one of the reasons I'd like to think I write pretty good songs, and I bounced off of a lot of music theory in the beginning because, again, okay, you're really good at music theory, but you can't write songs. Okay, I'm just gonna copy Kurt Cobain instead, right? And I have some songs that use borrowed chords, but I didn't know I was using borrowed chords. I was just playing like Kurt Cobain and other punk songwriters. So yeah, it's this weird contradiction. Theory is important. Oh, but you can never be like these geniuses. Yes, you can. Who knows? I'm not saying you're going to be famous, but you can develop your ear in the same way that they did. These artists spent hours and hours and hours and hours listening to music, singing along with music, trying to play along with music. They were developing their ear theory, as it were.
Disagree, and I have to admit, if I could just write "Come As You Are," maybe I wouldn't have cared to explore music theory. But the truth is, it really comes down to two types of people who say that music theory is useless: lazy people and incredibly famous people. Sometimes the two go hand in hand, but the common denominator is that neither person has a grasp on the thing it is that they are critiquing: music theory. In one instance, this is acceptable.
To learn how to read music or to understand arpeggios and Dorian modes and all that stuff is just a waste of time.
In another instance, in a much more common instance, I will say this: I've been through 4 years of music college at Berklee College of Music, and I have met some incredibly well-educated musicians in my life, and I have seen them go absolutely nowhere. And on top of that, I've met musicians who were in that school but weren't doing well, or didn't go to music college at all who are doing great. Deep musical knowledge on a technical level is not required to connect with your listeners.
Yeah. So he points out, okay, there's some musicians that know all the theory and they can't build an audience or connect with people. Nothing wrong with that. Like, make music for yourself, no rules. And then there's people that are not educated in theory and they are able to do that. So why is there this reluctance to then investigate what those people are doing? This is always the strange thing, the point of view that I see from people that are educated in music theory. I think it's great. There is some laziness. I kind of regret not delving into it when I first started, but again, it's this contradiction where so many of the people that are good at the theory can't write good songs, which was my main interest. So then you gravitate towards the other people, right? And then you think, well, those guys must be wrong, so I'm going to listen to Kurt Cobain, right? But now I've got a bit more experience. I've got more appreciation for music theory and how to use it. But I have not forgotten the lessons of the other people, and I don't just dismiss it as talent or luck or anything like that. I think, okay, what were those people doing compared to the other group, and what they were doing? And I realized that I was doing myself naturally was singing along with music, listening to all kinds of music, trying to recreate what you hear on your instrument, and trying to play what you can hear in your head. Those are the things that those people are doing. It's not some inborn thing. They were putting in hours just as much as people that are sitting down writing out scales on a piece of paper. It's just a different thing that they were putting their hours into. And if you want to, depending on what kind of musician you want to be, what kind of music you want to make, it's you could argue that is a better investment of your time. If you have to choose one, it's better to train your ear and your ability to make the music that you hear in your head than it is to learn the scales. Ideally, of course, you do both, and I'm sure that the real geniuses of music like Mozart and Bach and all those people, Beethoven, I'm sure that that's what they were doing. But this is the disconnect of, oh, these people are putting in the hours and these people are lazy or just were born with talent. No, they were putting in the hours. They were just putting the hours into something else.
It's just not. Heart, insight, honesty, empathy, these are the things that people look for in your music. And far be it from me to say how to write a good song, but I know what a good song sounds like, that's for sure. Every single Nirvana song can be analyzed using music theory. It's like that scene in Drumline with Nick Cannon where he's playing this incredible drum solo and he doesn't know how to read music or anything, but it prints out what he played and he's like, whoa, what the heck, I can do that?
That's you. Seeing was recording.
But crucially, check this out. In this song, what about... I mean, who comes up with that riff using music theory? Probably not anyone. And that's the thing about music theory, is it's not meant to be a replacement for your creativity. So I understand actually that there could be an innate bias within people who know music theory. It might lead us to write music that only fits in these music theory boxes. Like that's
exactly, that's what I was saying earlier. So we're on the same page with regards to this. You have to, when you're learning music theory, just be aware that you could be creating these boxes, as he says, unconsciously even.
Lithium, I'm always thinking, how did Kurt come up with that?
I'm not into musicianship at all.
Oh, well, like to me, Lithium doesn't sound like it's in a particular key because it's not, but that's something that I notice. I don't just hear the music for what it is. So, dang, maybe Kurt's onto something. But here's the...
I think he is onto something, but I think, again, what music is missing is Kurt Cobain knew theory by ear, maybe not with words. And I think Rick Beato is a bit better at understanding this aspect of how people write music, not using scales and looking at their fingers, where their fingers are, but letting their ears be the guide first and foremost.
About music theory, it's fun to know it, because then when you break the rules and you understand how it works, it helps me enjoy what's going on and understand the art form of it. Here's something about Kurt Cobain I'll say, which I have no evidence to back up. It's just a guess. But something tells me he would not do well in any sort of jam situation. I looked all over on YouTube to see if there were any like collaborations or guest guitar spots. Nothing. There's nothing out there with Kurt playing with anyone except Nirvana performing his own music. So really, he is a one of one. I don't even know if we can trust anything he says about music. He's sort of...
But I don't think Kurt Cobain was a one of one, right? If you think about all the musicians that made music that impacted people, we're talking about pop, rock, blues, jazz, how many of them were self-taught or taught within a community versus how many went to a formal school like Berklee, or in the UK went to BIM or something like that? It's not even close. It's I don't want to hate on these schools and Berklee, and because it depends on what your goals for music are, but in terms of people being known musicians and known songwriters, it seems that all the ones that really made it did not go to school for music. So it's not because they were incredibly talented. I think they were teaching themselves something which for some reason they don't teach in these expensive schools. And again, you get this disconnect, and then people think, well, if all the people that I know that went to Berklee can't really make music that is good, and that it doesn't become popular, then why go to Berklee? What are they teaching at Berklee? What are they teaching at BIM? And don't say John Mayer, he dropped out, right? And this is my question. Okay, if I went to Berklee, what would they teach me that could help me? Obviously, they would teach me music theory and become a better guitar player or whatever, and that would be great. But I could learn that myself, or I could get a private teacher. And it just seems that these schools pump out musicians that are technically really good, but they seem to have no creativity. And here's the thing: when I play at open mics in London, I can spot these music college bands a mile away. Usually they've got quite a few members, like 5 or 6 members. They have obviously guitar, drums, keyboard, bass, and they usually have 2 vocalists. And if you're a musician that doesn't go to music college, then you know how hard it is to find musicians to play with. But obviously if you're at music college, then you can just get all your classmates, right? And these bands, they are usually very good at their instruments. You can tell immediately that they're very good at what they're playing. But the music is often the most bland, just generic, funky music. And I don't want to be down on these people. Often they're young people, 18 to 21. They're just starting out in music, and they're just playing with lots of different people in order to get good at their instruments and get good at playing live. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But then some of these bands, they then think, okay, let's go out and gig and do original music. But 9 times out of 10, the music is just so boring and bland, even though technically they're really good at playing their instruments. And again, it's like, okay, why should I go to this music college if they're going to turn me into some generic, funky music player? It doesn't mean I think being an educated musician is really good, but I think that there's something that they're not teaching in these colleges, in these music colleges, because they're churning out way too many unoriginal musicians. And I honestly don't think it's just talent or something that you're born with. I think the people that are self-taught are teaching themselves things that are more important, and in an ideal world you would have both of those things. Anyway,
And I don't care who you are, if you can't play along and jam with somebody, any instrumentalist, it doesn't matter if they're a guitar player, a harpist, or whatever, if you can't sit down and jam with someone, can you really even play your instrument? Can you?
That's a bit of a hot take. I don't know if he's being 100% serious here or if he's just joking around. I'm not the greatest improviser. I would like to be better, and it's one of these things where, you know, just do it, just learn. I've got many things that I'm trying to do as a musician, and I've always focused on the songwriting and the lyric writing, so I can't be too down on myself. But yeah, I would like to be a better improviser, and that's something that I'm going to be working on this year. But this is a bit controversial because there are plenty of musicians that play in how do you say it, in orchestras, and they're not very good at improvising, but they're amazing at their instruments. So I don't know if this is a intentionally hot take or if he's serious. If he's serious, I completely disagree with him.
Even be called a musician?
I'm not into musicianship at all.
So likely Kurt Cobain's just trolling. I mean, it seems like he rejects the entire notion of music theory, despite his own grasp of the basics. Ultimately, the value of music theory, I guess, varies based on the musician's goals in the context of their career as a musician, whether they're a hobbyist or whatever. But my conclusion, my final verdict, is that music theory is important to anybody who loves playing their instrument. Of course, the fact that I'm a guitar teacher with tens of thousands of students in my guitar learning platform, Guitar Super System, which you can subscribe, link in the description. So maybe I am a little biased myself, but let me tell you, music theory sure does expedite things. It makes your musical ideas right there on the tip of your tongue, the tip of your brain, the tip of your fingers.
Okay, so he's a little bit biased, he says, as a guitar instructor. I'm a little bit biased as well. Now here's the thing. Yes, theory can help you bring your ideas to fruition, as it were, easier. But again, if I had to choose, if somebody said you can only choose one thing, you learn all the scales and how chords are constructed and all that theory, and you know it, you know how to explain it all, or you can only learn to do everything by ear, then I would choose to learn everything by ear and not know how to describe it, because at the end of the day, you have to be able to have something in your head and then have it come out on your instrument. And if you just know the rules, as it were, that's going to be a lot harder, because you need to train yourself to have musical ideas and have them come out of you. And just learning, it's the same as, you know, as I said earlier with being a writer. If you have to choose, I would say read a lot of books and not just learn all the grammar and all the words. If you learn how all the grammar rules of the English language, or whatever your language is, and all the words, you read through the whole dictionary and you memorize all the words, you will not become a better writer. But if you read loads and loads of books, and loads of classic books, and books that really speak to you, and then write, then you will become you have a much higher chance of being a great writer. And okay, here's something else. Now, Musicismylife, I've heard him jam on, I don't know what other kind of music he makes, but I've heard him jam, and he's a great guitar player, does instrumental music. But how good of a songwriter is he, and how good he is at coming up with pop, rock, or other kinds of popular music, or even metal or something like that? I don't know, and I don't know if he's in a band or anything like that. And again, look, I don't want to hate on him and say that he's a lesser musician or whatever. He's great at what he does, but should you listen to him about what it takes to become a great songwriter, or somebody that comes up with their own music? Personally, I think no, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to listen to him about, okay, what scale works over this chord, great, but I'm going to listen to Kurt Cobain and other musicians about how to write better songs. And yeah, now I said I'm biased as well, because I have my own course. It's called Guitar Theory Revolution, and you can find it at guitartheoryrevolution.com. And it's about, it explains music theory in a way that's guitar centric rather than piano centric, because one of the issues that a lot of guitar players find is that the way that it's taught, it comes from the point of being from the piano. Even though they say, oh, this is for the guitar, a lot of the assumptions are based around the piano. And until you see a guitar centric way of learning music theory, you don't even realize that it's happening, but when you see it, it's obvious. So yeah, my course is guitar centric, first of all, and also there's a big emphasis on training your ears and how to do that. There's I've included MP3s so that you can practice along, but also there's suggestions for exercises that you can do, so you don't need MP3s or ear training software. It's stuff that you can do every day with the music that you listen to, and that's, it's honestly, if I had to give away one secret, it's that it has to do with listening, singing along, and playing along with music. So yeah, that's what the course covers as well. And then there's an emphasis on songwriting, on chord progressions, because that's my favorite thing about music. It's writing songs. So yeah, those are the three things that I think make my course different from what other music theory and guitar music theory courses talk about. And the whole reason I wrote that course is because I was trying to figure it out for myself, and I thought to myself, okay, you've got these quote unquote theory nerds, and I say that in a respectful way, that can't seem to write good songs, and they can't come up with anything original. And then you have these other people that say that they're great songwriters, but they say that they don't know much theory. What is going on there? And I tried to figure this out for myself, and I wrote it all down. I wrote all my notes down, and then I thought, okay, some people were saying, oh, you should share this. So that's how that came about. guitartheoryrevolution.com, where I try to resolve this seeming contradiction, which is not a contradiction, but you just have to look at it and listen to it from the right perspective. Anyway, those are my thoughts about Music Is Win and his reaction to Kurt Cobain. This was my reaction. I'll speak to you guys next time.